What's going on, guys? It's Nollie the Gnome, and this is my too long didn't read guide for Blackrock Foundry. Now, Blackrock Foundry was something that I struggled to solo even as late as the end of Legion, but I went back in there, and I'm not very geared, and everything is just a complete cakewalk. Mechanics barely exist, and you can just pretty much kill anything. So assuming you have an item level close to where I'm at, or probably higher than me, because I don't even do LFR, you'll have no problem completing this. But let's get into the guide. So for Orgorger, it's pretty simplistic. All you do is just wail on him. If you see he's about to spit, you step out of the way. The worst mechanic here is crystals appear on the floor. The crystals will stun you. None of it will do any damage. Just nuke him. If he ends up rolling around the room, you could just stay in place, wait till he comes back to you, nuke him, you'll be done the fight. Like I said, none of these mechanics hurt. Grill is simple as well. His worst mechanic is he may knock you in the air and you may take a little bit of falling damage. He'll swipe you, none of it really matters. You may get hit by balls. I even pulled the ads as I started this encounter just to show you how little the mechanics hurt. Same concept, blow your cooldowns if you want, nuke them, and before you know it, the fight will be over. Now, of all the fights in Blackrock Foundry, this is the most mechanically intensive, and it's not even that difficult. But as you see, as I'm pointing on the screen, to the left and to the right are two heat vents. Now, in order to end the first phase and bring on the second phase as a two-phase fight, you need to take the engineers, who I'm currently clicking on, and stand under the heat vents, because the engineers will put a bomb on you, and when they die, they will drop a bag of bombs. You want the bombs to land under one of the two heat vents. You kill them one at a time, the heat vents. When the bombs explode, it's the only way to damage the heat vents. When you kill enough engineers and enough bombs explode, the heat vent then closes, you move on to the second heat vent. Once you rinse and repeat that mechanic, the second phase begins. Unfortunately, this is not a mechanic you can ignore. You have to do it this way, otherwise you won't be able to progress to the second phase. I slowed this down just to show you how it works. The guy with the shields will reduce damage significantly on everything in the circle. It's fine, you can just fight through the damage. It may take a little bit longer, but the most important aspect of this fight is to stand under the vents, because if they throw the bombs on you or they die, wherever they die is where they drop the bags, and you want them to be as close to the vent as possible to do damage to the vents. Just mostly AoE the ads and everything should die. My pet's on passive because I want to show you how they're not really even breaking my shield. That I get a little bit of a shield when I do damage, and they can't even break that. So just to show you how little everything hurts here. That's mainly the purpose of this, to show regardless of your gear, if you're 120, you should have very little trouble doing this. It's mostly just you have to do the mechanics to progress this fight. After this, most of the fights, you can ignore most of the mechanics. Even in the second phase, which requires mechanics to do, you can ignore the mechanics. It may take a little bit longer to do, but you can still just ignore them and just wail on the ads to then release the third phase of the boss. Okay, so you killed the second heat vent. Now what's going to happen is there's going to be channelers around the main boss in the middle. While this is happening, the guards that give you the shields are still going to come out, as well as these slag elemental type mobs. What you normally would do if you were doing the fight with the proper mechanics is you would bring the the slag guy you're looking at, the elemental, over to the channelers. You kill the slag elemental, they explode, which then reveals or removes the armor on the channeling skulls that I'm currently targeting. What I'm doing right now is showing you that I'm not doing the mechanics properly, to show that even while they have the reduced damage at 120, you can just power through it. It's not that difficult. But for the second one, I'm going to show you how to do it properly. So as you can see, she has a shield over her head. So we killed the slag elemental on top of her. He explodes, and when he explodes, he allows her to take more damage. It says vulnerable to damage, so you can really nuke her. So if you're slower on damage, if you're a healer spec per se, this makes it easier. All you have to do is kill the elemental on top of the channelers. It makes them a lot easier to kill, but you could probably do it without doing the mechanics anyways. After that, the boss is released. It's the same thing as everything else, tank and spank. And if you've completed this, I would argue this is the hardest fight in here. Anything after this is primarily tank and spank. So Hans and Franz share a health pool. The only mechanic that may serve you issues is these slams come down from the sky. And you can tell where they're going to come because the floor is going to glow in segments, and there'll always be a spot you can stand in. I got hit by the slam, and it didn't even break my shield, so I don't think it's going to do much damage to anybody, especially if you're in a tank spec or a healer or something. Even if you're like a weak, character with no heals, I don't think it's going to do much. Just focus on one. Try to cleave them while they're both up, but usually one will jump away. This is primarily tank and spank. There's not much to it. If you haven't gotten the gist yet, Flamebinder, just like most of the bosses in here, does absolutely nothing. Just focus fire her. You can kill the ad. I believe if you don't kill the ad and you kill her first, you may get an achievement. But other than that, just pop your cooldowns and GG. Now for Chromog, I killed him before any of the real mechanics started, but the only mechanics you have to worry about are hands that come from the ground. One, you'll see 2 runes on the ground, sort of on the left and right. If you stand in the middle, you'll get slammed. Shouldn't do much damage. The second phase, if you make it that long, if you start slamming the ground, you'll fly up in the air and take falling damage. The only way to stop that is you'll see yellow runes on the ground. Stand on one of the yellow runes and you will be grasped in a hand. You then kill the hand when the phase ends, which will prevent you from being thrown up in the air and slammed. All the damage in this fight will come from falling damage, not any damage he does. He doesn't do very much damage. But in most cases, you will kill him long before those phases happen. Beast Lord Darmak doesn't do very much damage. Throughout the fight, he may periodically jump on different mounts. They all have their own abilities. None of them really matter. The only thing you really need to worry about is he will throw a spear at you. You'll know where the spear is going because there'll be a circle on the floor before it happens. If you're by yourself, this will pin you, and there's no way to break it, so you're going to have to reset the fight, which sucks. All I recommend doing is just being mindful of the spear. If you step out of the spear before he throws it, the rest of the fight is tank and spank. Operator Thogar is a pretty easy fight. He'll throw these blue circles on the ground of lightning, which will slow you. If you look to your left and right, you'll see doors will be opening periodically, and the purpose of that is because trains fly through the track at different speeds. If you're standing on the train track, it will hit you and do a little bit of damage. The damage was insignificant to me. I would imagine it would be insignificant to any level 120. If you wish to avoid them, it's possible, but try to get out of the blue circles before they come, because it will slow you and make it more difficult to stand out of the way. Other than that, it's another tank and spank fight. Now with the Iron Maidens, the only thing you really need to worry about is, I believe it's when the Hurricane comes in front of you. I believe that stuns you, but other than that, you just sidestep it. It's mostly just an AoE fight. You can pick them off individually or try to AoE them down. There's not much to it. This is the one that primarily was the bottleneck for me back in Legion, but I've had no struggle with this, and that's why I made this guide, because it's more about awareness than anything. I'm just trying to tell you guys that you can do this now because a lot of cool armor drops from here, and the last boss even drops a mount. Now this is the most important part of the entire video, and that's because after you do get this quest, you only have to run the dungeon 4 times. It could be 4 weeks in a row, or whenever you want to do it. But after you run it 4 times and collect 4 items, one from each of specific bosses, you'll get a key which allows you to skip right to the final boss every time. In order to do that, you need to kill Maiden 4 times, I think Chromog 4 times, I think the Operator 4 times, and 2 more bosses 4 times. Now, unfortunately, you can only do this once a week, so if you do it 4 weeks in a row, the minimum it'll take is a month. But it's worth doing it because once you get this key, you can just farm the final boss for the mount over and over again. It's very easy to do, and that's mainly why I'm making this video, to raise awareness about the specific quest that not everybody may know about. Now, Blackhand, the final boss, the whole reason you're actually here, because he drops the mount, as well as, I believe, Blackrock, the enchant appearance for your weapons. His fight is pretty simplistic. It's mostly tank and spank. The second phase, the floor will keep dropping, I think, in 3 tiers. In the second phase, if you're there long enough, tanks will come out. What I recommend is just try to ignore all the ads, ignore all the tanks. They may knock you back, but if you can just focus fire Blackhand quick enough, it will transition into phase 3. Just, try to save your cooldowns for phase 3, because I think you may do a knockback in phase 3. It's been a long time, I can't really remember, but realistically, it shouldn't be too difficult. I've done this on 2 characters now, one even less geared than Nollie, and I still didn't have a problem. So save your cooldowns for the 3rd phase, and you'll notice it's quite simple. If you get them out, congratulations, you never have to come back again. If you don't, you still have the opportunity to make quite a bit of gold, as a lot of these vendor items sell for at least like 40 gold roughly, plus all the cool armor, and it's simple, it's fun, it's an easy way to get gold, and I think this is one of the better designed raids of Warlords of Draenor. I hope you guys really enjoyed this guide, as much fun as I enjoyed making it. If you liked it, please give it a like, it'll help the channel. Comment with any suggestions or tips for the next video. If you have any questions about any of the boss fights, I'd be more than happy to answer. But until next time, Nollie the Gnome out.